Okay, I'm going to call the first meeting of the Corporate Services Committee to order. And at the start of the meeting, I'll just make this declaration that the City of London is committed to making every effort to provide alternative formats and communication supports for council, standing and advisory committee meetings, and information upon request. To make a request for any city service, please contact accessibility@london.ca or 519-661-2489 extension 2425. With the call to order, I'll look for any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we will move to the election of a vice chair for a term ending November 30th, 2019. I would entertain nominations from colleagues. Councillor Helmer.
I'd nominate Councillor Kayabaga if she's interested.
Are you interested?
I'm interested, thank you.
Any further nominations for vice chair? Oh, I need a seconder for that one, actually. Okay, so moved by Councillor Helmer, seconded. Any other? No other interest. So we have a mover and a seconder. We'll get that up and we'll make that appointment on the screen.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
And congratulations to the councillor. Look forward to working with you. You not only get to chair meetings when I can't, but you get a fancy new seat starting next meeting where you kick Councillor Helmer out and everybody shifts down. So it's one of the perks of the job. With that, we have the consent agenda. There are 4 items on it. I'd look to colleagues for anything that they'd like to pull and debate separately from the consent. Councillor Van Meerbergen. So that's 2.2 and 2.3. We'll deal with those separately. Is everybody okay dealing with 2.1 and 2.4 together as one motion? Yep. Okay, we'll get that up on the screen and then we'll open that vote. Unless there's any discussion. Oh, mover, Councillor Helmer. Seconder, Councillor Hillier. Okay, that vote is up.
Closing the vote, and the motion carries 5-0.
Item 2.2, which is a request for proposal for fiscal agent services. Councillor Van Meerbergen, did you have some comments on this one?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to confirm that the syndicate we're talking about is not from Detroit or Chicago. Is that fair comment?
Ms. Barbon?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. They are not.
Any other questions? Okay, well, we can vote on that. For the future meetings, if colleagues just want to ask a question or two but have no intention of substantially changing their recommendation, we can deal with questions as a group of consents. If you think you're going to have substantive debate or something, we'll pull them out. So, but we'll vote on this one now, and I'll need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Helmer, Councillor Kayabaga.
Closing the vote, that motion carries 5-0.
The next item is a request for funding for the 2019 Juno Awards from the committee. Colleagues, we have both Mr. Campbell, one of the authors of the letter, as well as Mr. Winston from Tourism London here, who can answer any questions. I would open the discussion and debate knowing that they are certainly able to address questions if you have any. Councillor Hillier.
I'm very curious, through the chair, will there be more requests for additional funding?
I don't know, Ms. Barbone, do you want me just to go straight to the guests? Okay. Mr. Campbell, do you want to address that one? Yeah, you can come up and we'll use the microphone here. We can raise the device up for you. And I know you've done this a few times before, but just a reminder, turn on the microphone so people at home can hear, and then turn it off because there's only one that can be on at a time.
On behalf of the host committee, this will be our final request for funding.
Further questions? So this is a recommendation from our staff, which means it's already formatted. I'd look for a mover and a seconder on this. Councillor Kayabaga, Councillor Hillier. Oh, you have a question? Okay, go ahead.
Can I just ask, just for the people, because we have received some inquiries from our constituents to kind of understand where this money is coming from, and we know where it's coming from, but could you kind of go over where that money is coming from? And
I may have Ms. Barmont answer the source of financing question, because it's certainly within the city's scope.
right, and I'm just to make clear, I want people to know, as I've received quite a few emails on why are we funding this, and it's quite a bit of money, so I just want people to understand where the money's coming from.
Thank you, through the chair. So in October 1st, the municipal tourism accommodation tax was implemented in the City of London. So that was made possible. City Council passed that bylaw, but that was in response to legislation that the province had put forward that it would allow municipalities to implement this tax. So beginning October 1st, the tax was implemented. And as part of the bylaw, when the tax was approved, there are two portions. 50% of the money that the city receives, net of the fees that we pay to recover, goes to tourism, which is a tourism entity. So that is Tourism London in the city's case. So 50% goes there, and the remaining 50% remains with the City of London. So through that process of having council approve it, the money that the city receives will be placed into the Tourism Infrastructure Reserve Fund. So that money will be set aside. Their bylaw goes along with it, that basically will fund tourism-related infrastructure projects. And there's in the committee report, there's a number of different criteria that reserve fund was set aside. So that money is specifically from the tax that was implemented. So when people come and stay in the city's hotels, there is a 4% tax that is implemented, and that goes 50% to this reserve fund and 50% to Tourism London. So with respect to this request, because it is an infrastructure type related expenditure, it does fit the intent of the bylaw as a potential funding source. So there is no tax levy funding source in this reserve fund. It is solely from the accommodation tax.
Do you have any follow-ups?
No, I think that's a very good answer. I'd like to continue to move the motion.
Perfect. We'll have you down as the mover and Councillor Hillier as the seconder. I have Councillor Van Holst and then Councillor Van Meerbergen on the speaker's list.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my question to our guests is about the temporary nature of this. I mean, I would be willing to entertain a larger sum or some from another source if it were to be a wise decision to get something that we could use again. So was that entertained, or is there another idea that we've got for the future? Because I see a lot of events for London.
In this case, a portion of that infrastructure funding is directly related to an area adjacent to Budweiser Gardens that could perhaps eventually be expanded as permanent infrastructure, and certainly that would be another matter for another request. In this case, we need to use back of house space for dressing, artist preparation, media, that type of thing. And those costs in the future are infrastructure that could be replaced by permit, so we're not constantly having to do that. And other events such as World Figure Skating, Memorial Cups, you know, we've had to use funds to construct that temporary infrastructure. In the case of the main fan zone area, it's dependent on weather. In this case, you're looking at snow-rated tents because of the time of year, that type of thing, and the size. So it is a temporary structure.
Councillor Van Holst. Councillor Van Meerbergen.
Thank you. Just wanted to confirm, the city's net, I believe it's over a 12-month period, would be about 2 million? Is that what I read?
Ms. Barbell.
Through the chair, we had approximated, because we don't have any experience yet, we're estimating approximately 2 to 4. And once we've got a full year of experience behind our back, we'll be able to have a better estimate. But right now, that's what we're projecting.
And as we know, this will be funded primarily through visitors from the hotel tax. So, okay, my real question here is, have we given any thought, and this isn't just for this event, this could, going forward to all kinds of events that may come through in the future, with involving corporate donors more heavily, or?
Yes, and in fact, this is a catalyst designed, we are leveraging, we have corporate entities involved. I would estimate approximate costs of this outdoor fan zone to be in the neighborhood of $400,000. This is a contribution towards our ability to do that. This is by no means, and this is just on infrastructure. Other costs associated with that would be covered by numerous parties, including the Junos.
So just to confirm, there are corporate donors involved?
Yes.
Thanks.
All right, I have no one else on the speaker's list, but I'll just make sure colleagues are comfortable. I have a mover and a seconder, so if there's no other discussion, I can put this up for a vote. All right, we'll do that.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
So colleagues, I'm going to have to skip 3.1 for now. It's a timed item at 1 p.m. We're so efficient that we haven't got to that point yet. So I'm going to skip down to 4.1, which is item for direction. It's a letter from Councillor Van Holst asking for some items to be referred to the governance working group for consideration. While you're just reviewing that letter, I'm going to see if Councillor Van Holst wants to make some introductory comments about his letter. And then, of course, if the committee chooses to pass a motion, there's no motion on the floor associated with the letter. It's just a piece of correspondence. If we were going to take some action on this, I would need to look to committee members to actually move and second a motion to take action. So go ahead, Councillor Van Holst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I really like the idea of having a governance working group where we can have discussions at a very preliminary level about various topics that might be of concern to a councillor, as opposed to putting together motions, bringing them to committees and having those debated that way. It just provides for a much more a collaborative way to address some issues. So I hope the council, that your committee will agree to put these forward for a shorter or longer discussion at the government's working group, depending on how that goes at the committee.
Okay, so the councillor's asking if the committee will consider forwarding these two items to the governance working group for discussion. Councillor Helmer.
Thank you. Through the chair, obviously with number one, Councilor Van Holst knows I'm quite familiar with this idea. We've talked about it before. I don't have any questions about that. Number two, I wonder if you could clarify what exactly you mean by should non-committee councilors be allowed to participate in the debates? Are you talking about debates here at committee? For example, yourself, you're not a member of the committee in your yard participating in discussion? Or are you talking about at council where you say if you're not on the committee, you're not allowed to talk about it at council? I want to just make sure I understand what you mean.
Councillor Van Holst.
Thank you, and sorry for the lack of clarification, but it's actually committees. So I could have said standing committees. So sometimes someone will come along, maybe there's something in their ward for planning and they want to take a little different stance and advocate for the residents. But we actually have a policy says that you're not supposed to do that. And during the last term of council, we were very lenient on that. And I think it was a wise way to go. Simply, if we want to have committee work done in committee, then it's good to invite all the relevant discussion, because I remember one instance where councillors were not allowed to talk, and I actually had to, at council, say, we didn't discuss this, the committee didn't discuss this thoroughly enough, and refer it back, and it actually went back for more discussion at the committee when it could have been cleared up the first time. So I think we should just look at the fact that we've got a policy that says that's a little different than how we've dealt with it, and our system last term worked pretty well.
Any follow-up? Any other questions for Councillor Van Holst? Any direction that the committee wants to consider on this particular item? Again, right now it's just a request, so I would need either a direction to follow through on the councillor's request or a motion to, I guess it would be note and file this particular item, but we should dispense with it in some way. So I'll look to the committee. Councillor Hillier.
I support his request, and I do feel that councillors, when there's something coming up before committee that affects their ward, they should be informed so they can come and discuss the committee so we don't end up in debate at council.
Yes, and I will just caution, we don't need to debate the concept of the item here. The councillor is asking us if we'll send us to the governance working group for review. I can tell you by practice on the last council, certainly in the committees I chaired, there was no restriction on any sort of council member being able to participate in any debate. That is not my intention here chairing this committee this year in any sort of manner. I think it's very efficient to have all of the discussion and debates at committee. That being said, the councillor is, I think, looking for a discussion about whether clarifications need to be made in our council procedure bylaw, which is a little bit vague in this area. Certainly the chair can recognize whoever they like, but they can also not recognize. And I think that there's probably, he's asking if a discussion can occur to potentially make some changes there. So if you're supportive, it sounds like you want to make the motion to refer these items. I'd look for a seconder. Well, I'll second it so that we can have a debate, so or a discussion or a vote. So moved by Councillor Hillier, seconded by myself, to send this to the governance working group. Is there any other discussion? Okay. You can wrap up.
Thank you very much, and I suppose the irony about a request like this is that if it was turned down, then at council, I would simply move this again, and we would have to have the debate at council. So I think this may be a good way for in the future for us to get things into the governance committee, to have discussions without having to go through the formality of all that. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, I'll open this for a vote.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 3-2.
Okay, colleagues, that deals with that one. We have to wait until 1 p.m. for the tax agenda. We've dispensed with everything else except our in-camera portions. There's both the public agenda item and an in-camera item. What I would like to do is proceed with the in-camera portion, since we have at least 10 minutes. I don't know how far we'll get through. What we will do, since the tax agenda should be heard in chambers, is we will return to these chambers after closed session to do that part of the meeting and then conclude the rest of the matters on the agenda, including deferred matters. But for now, I'd like to look for a motion from colleagues to go into camera for both the reasons listed on the public and added agenda. Councillor Kaibaga, Councillor Hillier, put that up on the screen.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Okay, we're in committee room 3, colleagues. For those in the public, we'll be back to resume the rest of the meeting here after our in-camera session. All right, welcome back. I'll look to our vice chair to report on the in-camera session.
I'd like to report progress on the items that we went in closed session for.
Thank you. That brings us back to the item 3.1, the tax adjustment agenda. So you have the information in your package, colleagues. This is an item where we do open it up for public comment, in case anybody has comments on the tax adjustments being made. And then there'll be a motion after we close those public comments. So I believe we do the opening of the public comment on the system. Yep, so we'll do that now. Councillor Helmer.
Just moving it.
I'm a rookie chair. I keep forgetting that mover and seconders are an important part of the voting process.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Okay, so if there are any members of the public who are here for the tax adjustment agenda, which is the changes to taxes that are outlined in our report, this is the opportunity for you to make some comments. You can come to the microphone and just state your name and an address and the item that you're referring to, and then you can make your comments.
I don't have one of those yellow things, so I don't know what the item is, but my address is 7620 Longwoods Road, and I'm Jacqueline Crancy. So I guess you passed that the reduction of taxes will go through. Is that what the vote was?
We haven't done anything yet.
Oh.
We're just opening it for comments, so you can make your comments or ask your questions now, and we'll get you either the answers from our staff at the conclusion of your comments, and then we'll be making the vote.
Okay, sure. Basically why I applied for a reduction was when we bought the property, there was multiple units on the property, and we demolished them all and then built our home. And when we did all the work ourselves, we hired the demo company ourselves, we built our home ourselves. So we weren't aware that you have to apply to have those structures that were removed from your property to also be removed from your, I guess, tax bill as well. So I did that this year because I found out, I was wondering why my taxes were so high, I guess. So I inquired with MPAC, and they were the ones that brought it to my attention that I had to apply with the city to have these structures removed from my property as well. But while I was at MPAC, I had some additional questions that they really couldn't provide me answers for, and said it was more so kind of city questions. And it was more so just related to the services that I guess we aren't provided in the area that we live, and that we're still charged the same tax rate as everybody else in the city. And that was not brought up on my tax application because it's not really like, you don't apply for that. Like, it's more of a discussion like this here today. So he had said to me, the gentleman I spoke to, I believe his name was Steve, said that he agrees that we do not have a lot of the same services as what someone in the core of the city would. For example, I don't have sewer, I don't have water, I don't have sidewalks, I don't have city lights. My garbage collection, I have to walk across an 80-kilometer-mile highway to put my garbage out. I don't have a park that I can walk to. I don't have city buses. You don't mow the front area of my lawn, my boulevard, or your boulevard, I should say. Just a few of those things. And he agreed, yes. And you know what? I knew these things before I moved into that area, but I don't know the tax process, and I didn't know. I thought there was something sorted out that there'd be lesser of a rate when you're getting lesser of the services. And he kind of agreed and kind of said that they've been kind of pushing for that. I don't know, this could be hearsay or rumors or whatever. This is just what I was told when I went to the MPAC office in Westmont Mall, that he believes that it should be a lesser of a rate because we are having lesser of their services. So that's kind of more so why I came today, to voice those concerns and also explain why I applied for my initial application, was to remove those structures that are no longer there. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you for your comments.
Yep.
I'm going to look to our staff if they have any comments on the actual appeal application as it was presented on this, given the comments from the public. Or if they don't, then that's fine as well. But I know there were some comments made that are potentially germane to the matter before us. There's also some general comments on taxes that were made too. But I want you to stick to the comments on the matter before us.
Yes, through the chair. The application in question, when the notification was sent to the property owner, there was an invitation to contact the tax office to discuss any matters that she may have concern of. We hadn't heard anything from this individual until today. But what the problem was here is that she's correct. There were buildings demolished, and she's acquiring for a period from April of 16 to December of 16. Section 357 of the Municipal Act only applies to the current year. It has to be filed by February 28th of the following year, so the deadline would have been February the 28th, 2017. So that's why this application was denied and there is zero adjustment. Now for 2017, the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation did process a post-roll amended notice to reflect the value reduction of the demolished buildings. But her application before us today is late and therefore does not qualify in 2016.
I guess I have some additional questions.
Just hold on one second.
That's right.
I need you, if you're going to comment one more time, and I'm going to allow it, to stick very much to the application that's before us and
Sure.
the matter. The other stuff is not going to be allowed. So
Okay.
go ahead.
First to address, yes, I did receive that letter today in the mail. So today I received a letter saying that there was a hearing today. There was a date on here saying December 4th to submit to the tax adjustment clerk. Well, today's December 11th. I don't know if that has to do with Canada Post or whatever, but I had other plans. I've taken a day off work today. Like, where do I get my pay? You know? I'm sorry.
It's okay. I think we have the information that you needed to provide us. So
I'm just also upset just because I'm late to apply. If I would have known, I would have applied on time.
yes,
So
thank you. I think we understand the situation. I'm going to look for a motion to close the public consultation, and then we can enter into some discussion about the tax agenda as a whole. So, mover, Councillor Van Meerbergen, seconded by Councillor Hillier.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
We're a committee, so I'm going to allow any questions about the tax adjustment agenda. This is all of the items. You heard one delegation from the public on one of the items, but any comments or questions you have for our staff about this particular item before we move to making a decision on them. And certainly you have all of the tax adjustments before you, but you can ask on something very specific or something on any of the other items. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, since we know that we've had some issues with Post Canada being on strike, and as she mentioned that she didn't get the letter till today, I'm wondering if there would be some open room to review her application, or...
Yes, Mr. Edmonds, on this particular matter, can you comment on the file, what was appealed, and also what ability we have to even make a decision on it? Because I know that there's, the Act prescribes certain things, and as well as the notification and what it related to.
Yeah. Yes, through the chair. The notices were mailed out, I believe it was November the 23rd, and yes, I agree with you that the Canada Post situation is probably the cause why the individual just received a notification today. But that, having said that, that would have had no bearing on the decision as to whether it was eligible or not eligible for the Municipal Act application under Section 357. The application had to be filed by the 28th of February 2017 in order to apply for 2016 tax year.
And if you could comment on, is that a legislative requirement, or is that something that councils have discretion on or not?
No, that is a legislative requirement contained in the Municipal Act under that Section 357. It specifies time to file your complaints and those type of things, yes.
Further comments or questions? So we have for us the tax adjustment agenda. I'd look for a mover or seconder for that as a whole. Deputy Mayor Helmer, seconder. Councillor Hillier. Any other discussion on this? No? We'll open this for a vote then.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0, and I just would like to point out that we will amend this to note the public that, or the speaker that did present to the committee, this was preloaded and I didn't amend it before I put it up, sorry.
Okay, so that part of the agenda is now over. We have, the only thing left is deferred matters and additional business. Is there any other matters for committee's consideration? Seeing none, I would look for a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Helmer, seconded by Councillor Van Meerbergen. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you.